Yo, I'm back. I used to love PGR when I was playing with PGR. It was my first gacha that I really played. Now I'm quitting. What happened? Well, a couple of things. First one I want to start off is the content issue. Current PGR basically has only two types of content. One, Pancake and Warzone, which either Warzone, where is a slog because of time lag calculation being, and whenever an ult happens, the timer pauses for a reload because the ult is too long because they couldn't just make short ults. That's why I say ZZZ's combat system is way better than BGR's easily. And Pancake, you kill the enemy fast enough. Oh yeah, how Warzone works is that you go through waves of enemies. If you ever played Wiwa, in Wuwa, it's basically that, but its predecessor. It's a slog. It's a really, really big slog. Or puzzle events. That's pretty much it. We have story, but that's not much of an improvement overall because I barely did story when I was still playing. As for the other types of content, they barely updated them contents. Norman, they haven't updated Norman in a very long time. I don't even remember the last time they updated it. Delica's class, a place where you can just go out and fight bosses. But one, it's not my immediate type of content I would think of. And two, they haven't updated it since Shaper's Ripples. Since Shaper's Ripples, meaning that content is not even there, insistent that much. And three, the alternative modes. Now, the alternative modes used to be good. They used to be real fun, roguelike likes modes. But then, all of a sudden, at some point, they decided to just drop bullshit, starting with the God one, where it's just an auto battle thing, like literally auto battle. Not even joking, auto battle. I barely played that one, and I know what I could. And then even if it come back to PGR, I do not want to play that shit. Then there's the other one, the new one that they had just recently. I forget its name. It's the same shit that Godfall was, but with slight improvements. Yeah, you can miss me with that bullshit, man. Because it sucks because shit like the Wi-Fi Matrix and Curse Waves were real fun, even though they also were monotonous over time. Because it's basically, both of them were basically like IS, but with a little bit of different bells and whistles. Because Pakishar's combat system is where you can just literally do rotations and spam rotations with trunk, or do the newer characters, and you can just cheese the entire game from front to back with little to no effort. With Derive, if you mess up the rotation, you actually Derive and Curse Waves mess the rotation because Curse Waves and Derive and the other roguelike and the other roguelike, I forget their names, they scale off of which characters they last updated with. So allowing you to, not have to actually use the meta units from the newer things, and you just use units from older eras instead in trial units, because that will be more ideal. So, because of the fact that they decided to just ditch that for Godfall, it's damn, we're really out of content here. Aside from once again, Pancake and Warzone, which once again suck. So, what about the puzzle events? They're puzzle events. I do need to explain. Ever since a Devil May Cry collabs patch, they haven't really given us any good events so far. All of them has been puzzles. Now, what about the elephant in the room? The meta. The meta sucks. The meta really sucks. Current meta is before the breakers. The current meta was if a new unit comes out and it does more damage than the previous unit, that previous unit gets directly power cut. There's no, you have to rebuild an entire new unit to actually get back into the meta and the end game. Now, am I a meta player? Well, no. Even when I was playing, it wasn't. But even still, I still have to ultimately talk about it because it still sorta affects me. Ever since they implemented breakers into the game, attackers have been in a state where whenever they release, they're basically dead on arrival because the moment their breaker variant gets released, because breakers are basically better tanks that deal damage and do what tanks does, aka reduce defense, reduce extra damage, aka the debuffer class. Effectively, now all of a sudden you lead into a situation where now you no longer want to play the attacker class for that element because the breaker deals significantly more damage and lasts longer than the attackers. This is especially bad when limited units are now completely threatened to ever get powered up. That is why the Fataz video that Glade made talking about Alpha is saved is a complete joke. Because Alpha isn't saved, the whole game hasn't been saved. They only added a couple of things to actually make it quote-unquote better, and that's increased rewards that should have been defaulted ever since Combine ended. No, ever since Combine started. That shit should have been permanent. But because they gave us back during the Combine patches, there was 2 times rewards, 3 times rewards, shit like that. That should have been the default. This time around, they just 1.5 times rewards, I'm pretty sure. Which, cool. It solves a little bit of problems, but ultimately, it's still just the same game. And still almost the same amount of rewards you got before, but this time you still have to deal with getting the breakers and considering. Back to what I was talking about, the breaker shit. Alpha in Affix element. I discussed this before in the fucking gotchas in one of my older videos, but Alpha in her Affix element initiation, she is weaker than Kamui, a firebreaker in the firebreaker, just because she doesn't do as much damage as him at equal investment. In order for her to be better, she has to literally be SS3. Meaning you had to pull an extra copy for her alongside doing everything in your power to actually get her to the level that you need to actually compete in endgame. Or just get her to a double S, meaning that you have to pay to win. At that point, you're a whale. That is terrible. That is genuinely a terrible state to be playing the endgame in. And the endgame wasn't already fun as is. So as a casual who just pulls at every character, you know for a fact that shit's balls. Not to mention, the new units that are coming out literally don't even look like they're from PGR. They look like they're not even adjacent anymore. So yeah, at this rate, I might as well just quit. But I feel as if when I quit, it's more like I left because of burnout and nothing more. It just doesn't. The game is not fun anymore. The game isn't fun. I don't like playing PGR anymore. And it sucks because this shit was my most beloved gacha ever until Arknights came into my life back in 2025 when Enfu was getting hyped up over that period. It genuinely just sucks. It really does. Well, that's it. This is... Yeah, you're not seeing me come back to PGR ever or type about it nicely. It's over. Go play Wyvern Waves, something like that. Wyvern Waves isn't something better than PGR. Is just living proof that Kiro is greedy. By the way, might make a separate video on that.